Good morning, madam. So we are from Group 2, and we are going to present about Sedition Act 1948 restrict Malaysians' freedom of expression. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start off with the introduction. Malaysian Sedition Act 1948 prohibits selective speech. The law was first implemented in 1948 by the colonial ruler of British Malaya in order to quell the local communist insurrection. The Sedition Act of 1948 is a restraint order that tells you not to do certain things. Sedative acts include, among other things, those that tend to inspire anonymity towards a ruler or even against government, stimulates people to take over any government area by illegal method, bring the administration of justice in Malaysia into hatred. Next, let's see what is meant by freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is a fundamental right of the public or individuals to express their belief, ideas, and emotion. Every citizen has the right to freedom of speech and expression. All citizens has the right to assemble peaceably and without arms. All citizens have the right to form association. Parliament in Malaysia restrict or limit this right by adopting the Sedition Act 1948. Article 10 of the Federal Constitution of Malaysia guarantees the right to free expression. The safeguarding of this right is critically not only to Malaysians' advancement as a democratic society, but also to the survival and growth of each individual person. Next of all, let's see how this act restricts Malaysians' rights. The Sedition Act of 1948, which carries prison sentence of up to 3 years for first-time offenders and 5 years for repeat offenders, criminal vague offensive like expressing any abusive language or act with a sedative tendency. Moreover, those spread hate or disaffection of the government or judiciary, encourage hostility between races or classes, or completely undermine any rights. That's all from me. I will pass it to Amir. Thank you.
Thank you, Davesh. For the background information, Sedition Act 1948 was introduced by the British Empire to the Federation of the Malayan Peninsula, at the time the Federation of Malaya, with the intent of curbing independent thought from the public psyche and to also combat the growing threat of communism. The Federal Constitution has allowed for the Parliament to impose limitations on free speech in the name of national security. One example is the aftermath of the 13th May 1969, in which a racially motivated riot in Kuala Lumpur took the lives of 200 people. The Constitution is amended by the government to limit the effects of free speech. An Emergency Ordinance 1969 was formed in the wake of the incident. The Constitution Act 1971 named Articles 152, 153, and 181, and also Part 3 of the Constitution as specially protected, permitting Parliament to pass legislation that would limit dissent with regard to these provisions pertaining to the social contract. This then allowed the Parliament to make amendments to the Sedition Act accordingly. Members of Parliament are also restricted by passing Parliament immunity. Moreover, any sensitive part of the Constitution must now need the consent of both the Conference of Rulers and the Parliament to make any changes. Criticisms of the Act has been voiced over the years, such as oppositions to the ruling party who campaigned against the Act, citing greater race equality during the 1969 elections. Foreign criticism is also present for this Act, most notably the press from the British mainland. Next, I will pass it on to Iqbal.
Thank you, Amir. The Sedition Act 1948. In Malaysia is a law prohibiting discourse deemed as seditious. The act was originally enacted by the colonial authorities of British Malaya in 1948 to contain the local communist insurgents. The act criminalized speech with seditious tendency, including that which will bring into hatred or contempt, or to excite disaffection against the government or endanger feeling of ill will and hostility between different races. The meaning of seditious tendency is defined in Section 3 of the Sedition Act 1948, and in substance, it is similar to English common law definition of sedition with modification to suit local circumstances. Next, I will pass the presentation to the VC.
Okay, thank you, Iqbal. I will now tell you about the effects of the Sedition Act. So in these modern times, the use of the Sedition Act has increased thanks to the uprising use of social media in all ages, which enables the people of Malaysia to voice out their opinions much easier and without any restrictions by the social media platforms. With this, the people are able to spread hate speech and even seditious acts through social media platform. However, the Sedition Act does and will cover seditious acts through social media as well. What follows is the effect of the amendment of the Sedition Act 1948. As of April 2015, at least 78 people had been investigated or charged under the Sedition Act since the beginning of 2014, representing a significant escalation in Malaysia's crackdown on critical voices. 7 individuals have been convicted for sedition since mid-2013. In recent years, the government has employed a variety of other laws besides the Sedition Act to target independent media and block websites to frustrate the exercise of protest rights. Such as in the year 2000, Marina Yusof, a well-known politician who is also the former vice president for the National Justice Party, was charged with sedition for accusing the rival party UMNO of provoking the Chinese during the May 13 incident. Later in the same year, Kalpal Singh, who is the deputy chairman of the opposition party DAP, has been charged with sedition after claiming that Anwar Ibrahim was poisoned by, and I quote, people in high places. Moreover, in 2003, the local online publication company Malaysia Kini was shut down temporarily under the Sedition Act after it published a letter in which it criticized the Malay Special Rights, also known as Bumiputra Rights, and compared the youth wing of a government party to the KKK, which is well known as a racist body of organization, which has committed many discriminatory acts. Last but not least, in November 2020, a student group at the highest ranked university in Malaysia, which is University Malaya, called the Association of New Youth, was investigated under the Sedition Act after posting an article on Facebook titled Yang di-Pertuan Agong should not intervene in national affairs. Amnesty International Malaysia, in response to the situation, published an article that described this investigation as appalling and claimed that it violated the students' freedom of expression under the Federal Constitution. So that's all for me. I will pass it on to Nabiha.
Thank you, Darwishi. So next, I will present about the cases under this act that we include in our slides. The first case is Hishamuddin Rais, who is an activist. He was found guilty and was fined 5,000 ringgit for uttering seditious comments after urging popular demonstrations to topple the government during a forum at the Kuala Lumpur Chinese Assembly Hall on 13 May 2030. The next case is Eric Paulson, who is a lawyer and co-founder of Lawyer for Liberty. The investigations are based on a 9 January 2015 statement on his Twitter account saying that Chakim is promoting extremism every Friday. The Session Court has fined 27 April 2015 to hear his case if a constitutional challenge to the law brought by Azmi Sharum is not successful. The court also set 2,000 as bail. The next one is I'm gonna present about the conclusion. In a nutshell, we have freedom of expression and speech in this day and age. But it is not absolute because we are constrained by the numerous acts that exist in this country. It is impossible to deny that freedom of speech and expression is one of the most important pillars of a democratic society. Too much freedom can lead to an unanticipated events such as the racial riots of May 13, 1969. In such a multicultural culture, every single remark must be carefully considered as it may offend to harm the sensibilities of others or even worse, be inflammatory. We are nations and we must defend our ethnic minorities from discrimination. The government also plays a vital role in enforcing the law while not abusing it. In order to safeguard one another, everyone has equal rights to everything they choose without breaching the laws outlined in the Federal Constitution. Next, I will pass to Ami. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabiha. For our collective opinions, laws like this, in this case the Sedition Act, are utilized as a last resort when certain parties abandon compromise and racial tolerance, which have served as the cornerstone for unity in this country. We must be careful to distinguish between free expression and seditious comments. In a civilized society, freedom of expression should be used to encourage people to stay united and live in harmony rather than making remarks that hurts the feelings of others, which could lead to conflict and discord. As such, the Sedition Act of 1948 is beneficial to society because it helps to prevent riots and conflicts between various races and classes from occurring. For example, by having the Sedition Act 1948, it can prevent having a day such as the May 13, 1969 incident from ever happening again. Next slide, please. Now, to end our presentation, I would like to ask a few questions. The first question is, what are the examples of seditious acts?
I will answer the first question. Example of seditious act is to bring into hatred or contempt or to excite disaffection against any ruler or against any government, to promote feeling of ill will and hostility between different races or classes of the population of Malaysia.
Okay, thank you, Iqbal, for the answer. For the second question, how significant is the 13th May incident to the Malaysian society?
I will answer that question. So the 13th May incident has a lasting effect on the Malaysian society. So immediately after the incident, martial law is immediately imposed on the budding nation, and it isn't lessened until 2 years later. Long term, however, is the introduction of Rukun Negara by the government to promote unity amongst Malaysians. The Sedition Act is also amended, essentially strengthening it and further limiting the Malaysian society's ability of free speech. And it's an effect that's still felt to this day.
That is all from us. Thank you.